This is the show Never Heard That. My name is Andrew Muki. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be listening to the song Carpet Crawlers by the UK band Genesis from their 1974 double album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Genesis started in earnest as a school band in Surrey, England in 1967. Although there has been movement subsequently, their 15th and last album, Calling All Stations, was released in 1997. Over this extensive period, the band has changed colours many times. It could be summarised that they started as a folk band, moved into progressive rock in the 1970s, then into mainstream pop by the early 1980s. It could also be said that their audience changed through those periods too. Keyboardist Tony Banks, bassist guitarist Mike Rutherford and vocalist Peter Gabriel were there from the start and saw that movement from folk to progressive rock. Phil Collins as drummer, in addition to guitarist Steve Hackett, were brought on board for the third album Foxtrot, which was released in 1971. It was certainly at this point that the band would be considered to be more progressive rock than folk. Gabriel's theatrics, both in his performance and his costumes, started to get pretty wild by this time. This change, both orally and visually, really altered their audience too, and they also suffered some backlash. For example, legendary BBC DJ John Peel championed the band in their early years, and they performed 3 sessions for him between 1970 and 1972. But he grew disillusioned with what he called their later excesses. They also suffered from being labelled privately educated and middle class, and therefore unable to relate to the working class. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is the last album with Peter Gabriel at the helm, as he left the band to go solo in 1975. The progressive rock label continued for the band over the next few albums as Collins took over vocal duties. Interestingly, this only occurred after their search for a replacement singer for Gabriel failed. By the time of their 1978 album, And Then There Were Three, released after the departure of guitarist Steve Hackett, the progressive rock component to their music started to diminish. When they released their 1980 album Duke, it could be said that they were much closer to mainstream rock. No matter what people think of their 80s and early 90s output, they were extraordinarily successful. For example, their 1986 album Invisible Touch featured 5 US top 5 singles, and in 2010 they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. For those who closely follow music history, they will also know that Phil Collins went on to have an extraordinarily successful solo career. So, certainly impressive achievements. However, today we are going to go way back. Here is the song Carpet Crawlers from the 1974 Genesis album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
There is lamb's wool under my naked feet. The wool is soft and warm, gives off some kind of heat. A salamander scurries into flame to be destroyed. Imaginary creatures are trapped in birth on celluloid. The fleas cling to the golden fleece, hoping they'll find peace. Each thought and gesture a caught in celluloid. There's no hiding the memory, there's no wrong to avoid. The crawlers cover the floor in the red oak corridor. On my second sight of people, they've more lifeblood than before. They're moving in time to a heavy wooden door, where the needle's eye is winking, closing on the pore. The carpet crawlers heed their callers. We gotta get in to get out. We gotta get in to get out. We gotta get in to get out. There's only one direction in the faces that I see. It's upward to the ceiling, where the chamber's said to be. like the forest fight, the sunlight that takes root in every tree.